Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions in the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to justice gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. On this show, I interview lawyers ditching the billable hour and experts who can help attorneys move beyond billing time. Thanks to my sponsors, 650 and Gavel. Links to both in the show notes. More on them later, and use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED when signing up. You get 10% off, and it supports the show. The best way to support the show is to share it with someone you know. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. I'm thrilled to have with me today on the Law Subscribe podcast, John Ting. John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matthew, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, so glad you agreed to come on. I heard you, I think it was actually almost like a year ago or something on like the Maximum Lawyer podcast, talking about all the innovative things that you're doing and your approach to immigration law. And what, when you're owning a firm, things are busy. My podcast is very, very secondary, tertiary to my practice, but I'm glad I followed up with you and you came on because some of the stuff you were talking about I knew would resonate with my audience. But just in case my listeners haven't heard that episode, go ahead and give yourself a little introduction.
Sure. Well, my name's John Ting. My firm is full focused on immigration law, helping people live and work in America legally. And I started my practice straight out of the gate out of law school, and I graduated in 2011. And as I'm sure most lawyers, especially if you have your own law firm, I've learned a lot over the span of a little over a decade. And so I've always had a inclination to use tech for the best interest of the client, but also the practice and my employees and staff. And sometimes I've been frustrated with the lack of advancement on tech. And so anytime I guess some of us have this thing like the shiny object syndrome. Mm-hmm. So I get caught up in that. And that's because I'm always looking for the next best thing. And so I finally got to a point the past 2 years, I told my team, don't worry, we're going to use this software for 1 year and then revisit the following January or something. So, but yeah, I can share my tech stack later. I should have mentioned that my main physical office is in Houston, Texas.
I got to imagine it's way easier now in 2024 to start a law firm than it would have been in 2011 when you got started. I mean, some of the practice management software that's available now. I mean, look, I'm actually not even using much legal tech, but I understand for things like immigration and litigation, like these legal practice management platforms now are like a non-negotiable. So like, we'll get into the technology, we'll get into what you're doing with the membership model. But let's just talk about that for a little bit, because we have a lot of listeners who are like working at a firm. They're not happy. They hate billing time, and they want to take that leap. So like thinking about like what you know now and what's available now compared to when you got started, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, part of it really is just like just going against the grain, right? I mean, using tech, but also, like you said, the billing model. Even though it's common practice with immigration to be flat fee, mm-hmm. I know some immigration lawyers charge hourly. And I think hourly in general for any practice area is just a hassle, right? Like, and I don't know why, like a long time ago, I helped with some family law, divorce cases. And I'm like, that's when I realized, oh, well, the back of the bar journals when people have reprimands and warnings, and it has to do with billing. So if there's anything usually related to money. So if there's any way we can make our jobs easier in our team, I think the subscription model or flat fee is really helpful for the law firm.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, according to most legal ethics, subscription is recurring fixed fee or flat fee, depending on which term your legal ethics use, right? So, it's all kind of flat fee here at the end of the day, even when we're using the subscription model. I'm curious to know, since you went solo right away, like, did you learn any of that in law school? Like, did you come out billing your time because you just didn't know any other way? Or did you not because they don't actually teach you how to bill in law school?
That's interesting you asked that, because I did have a pretty good idea I was going to start my own law firm. Not first year, but I did take a 2-credit course about solo small firm. But no, it did not teach anything about billing in the sense. Unfortunately, it should. Absolutely.
Isn't that something, right? Like, you spend all this money and yet you still don't know anything about practicing law, and I'm sure groups like Maximum Lawyer helped, and maybe there's some other things out there, then how did you learn the things that law school didn't teach you about being a firm owner?
Ooh, mentors. That's one thing. And usually mentors is really the practice of the law, but not necessarily the business law. And I think, before groups like Maximum Lawyer, lawyers, we just I don't know why it is, but I mean, starting with law school, some people don't want to share their outlines, right? They're just hiding their notes. Like, I mean, fortunately, you have your own study buddies and things, but I think it really starts from there. Unfortunately, it's just hiding the ball, don't want to share things. But fortunately, there's been plenty of people that paid it forward in that sense and shared information with me. And I'm trying to do the same. So thank you again, Matthew, for inviting me.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of these things where lawyers we think that there's only so much of a pie, right? And you can only go after those slices of pie that are there. But the latent legal market, coming back to pricing, right, and how you price your services, because especially I have to imagine with like immigration law, like I know immigration law is dense and there's H-1B visas and there's green cards and there's like all these different, like it's actually, you could niche down in one type of immigration. So I get that too. But to the average consumer, they think I need an immigration attorney, and so they're searching broad immigration attorney. So I have to imagine how you charge your clients is one of these distinguishing factors of standing out. And I think with the latent legal market, with people who maybe they need more pricing certainty or more flexibility in how they pay their lawyer, like that market is massive. And so like you're not really competing because there's so much opportunity there to find paying clients who maybe won't be paying clients of a high flat fee or a billable hour firm, right? So I'm curious to know if that's been part of your strategy and also how you came to your Light Pro Max pricing.
Yeah. Well, the light. So first 8 years of my practice was, oh yeah, it was like for each case type or, legal status application that you referred to, we had to set one price for that. And then I realized, yeah, my contracts mentioned like, oh, if you need representation at the interview, it's going to be X dollars. For example, let's say $500 if it's local. And then I thought, well, that's not. Some people would want a lawyer there, so why not create a plan, a service level? Yeah, basically like a membership plan in that sense. Because I want to, and I call it membership plan because I want clients to feel like it's you're joining a community, like a tribe. So that's why I call it membership plan. I wouldn't say membership in terms of you have to pay every month until the case is done. You just pay until the balance is complete. Yeah, but then it's like like learning about business of owning a practice or the practice of law. The more you hear something, eventually, like the 20th time, you're like, okay, I'm finally going to take action on that. So then these three plans were inspired by this business gym owner, Alex Hermosi. Have you heard of him? He has two books out now, 100
No,
million, 100 million leads or something like that.
no, but a gym membership is a subscription model.
Exactly. So he had three levels, right? And he was helping other business gym owners with their own getting more people to join the gym. And so after I heard that, I was like, oh, a gym can do this? Why not us? And so I took it a step further is I want to be transparent with our leads, our clients also, is that what are we offering in the light plan? And then what are we offering in the pro plan and then the max plan? Max would include our interview representation for like residency. Um,
So instead of charging this one-off fee to clients who are all paying the same amount, you're now bundling that representation with a whole type of level of payment that the client is going to pay.
exactly. And it's all right there. So I'm trying to think, I don't know, I use the example like Costco. It's not entirely the best example, but they have different levels of membership. And each level for Costco has like different kinds of, get more points than others or whatnot. And so anyway, I thought, well, also pricing wise, revenue wise, it's you want to at least make the profit margin you want, at least in the pro plan. It doesn't have to be the max plan. Max could be like $500 more than your pro plan in the middle. And then light plan is almost like, at least for immigration wise, like we help file your case, but then anything after that, like you want to ask questions, there's no client support. So Matthew, we don't have anyone select the light plate, but it's there. It's also there, if I can add that we have some people in their custom, in their culture, they're used to asking for a discount. So we shut down that conversation by redirecting and say, well, actually, we do offer the light plan. That's the lowest we can go.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for asking.
I know you said nobody signs up, but do you let people switch? So, for example, I sign up for Light, I could upgrade to Pro. I sign up for Pro, I could upgrade to Max. And do you let that happen? And if yes, which it looks like yes, how do you handle that kind of thing?
One great example is H-1B visa. There's right now the way the process works is there's a registration. They used to call it lottery, and that happens the first couple weeks of March, and it's completely random, as they say. And so it does. And even right now, this is actually the last year they could pay $10 for the registration to the government, but we charge. I don't know if I'm allowed to say pricing, but we charge much lower just to help. I don't say just, but to help people register. And then if they get selected by the end of March, then yes, we force them, you have to upgrade to Pro or Max. And most people for H-1B for us is Max because the employer doesn't want to deal with any of it.
Right. So that's interesting. So for H-1B visas, you're not having the individual pay. The employer is the one who's paying because they're the ones who are ultimately getting the benefit of that person's work in the country, right?
Exactly. It's actually required by the
Well,
immigration nationality for the
well,
employer to
well,
pay. But then, yeah, I
there you
mean,
go.
so
I
because the
obviously don't
process,
do I don't do immigration law, clearly.
yeah, sure. But one thing to note is that the process in that sense is easier in terms of sales because several years ago, it used to be like by the first week of April, the law firms had to have the entire package, application, evidence ready and mailed in by the first week of April. But they changed that. So really, the first step is registration. It's like 3 questions or something. So it's much easier. And then if selected, then you can file the entire package. So I think it's great for employers at least.
So this is really interesting. I didn't know this going in. So you have at least then like two client avatars or personas or whatever term you like to use. You've got the employer for H-1B visas, then you got like the person for the other types of work that you're doing, right? So when it comes to like these plans, like the Light Pro Max plans, who's easier to sell on like these things? Is it the employer or is it the individual? Or maybe it's not that's not so simple a question. And I'm curious to know the difference because like attorneys like me, I am serving individuals and I'm serving small business owners. And because subscription works really well for fractional general counsel. And so I'm curious to know your perspective on that because there's some lawyers who are like, well, I just want to serve just the small business owner. I just want to serve the everyday person and be their fractional counsel through their life. So from the immigration perspective, who's been easier to sell on this?
Ooh, well, because I'm on social media and whatnot, I anticipate that it's most of the individual, let's say like the candidate employee, easier to sell for them. But employers like that. I think, well, because they sign up, they like that option for the light plan because yeah, they have a hesitancy to pay the full amount like the max plan if the employee doesn't get selected. It's like what did I just pay for? Nothing. So I encourage and it might seem strange, but I'm happy to be on your show because I actually encourage immigration lawyers to understand this because we're in it to help people. And I don't know what it is, but at least with immigration law, it appears that a lot more of us are more collegial because man, just immigration laws, policies can change, and we really need each other's support. So I'm happy to share these kind of tips as well.
Yeah, going back to the model, how did you come up with the pricing and the like how often they pay and how did you decide what that maximum limit is? Like it's subscription in that they're paying every month, but there is ultimately an end goal of this is the total amount you're going to pay. You're not going to pay any more than this. That's the balance for the Pro and the Max plans. And like how did you just design the pricing? You don't have to give numbers because I know also it could go up, unlikely to go down, but numbers change. And I try to keep these shows evergreen. But I think the getting into the mind of the strategy of how do you figure out what per month or what's the maximum amount, like that's going to really help the listeners.
Well, I know when starting out is difficult to figure out, but eventually when you get a core group of friends who practice the same area, it's easier in that sense. But also ultimately it depends on your budget. It took me several years to realize this. Like a book, not to go completely off but related, is a book that I read is called Pumpkin Plan. So a lot of immigration law is known to be volume practice. I actually discourage that and I encourage to increase your pricing and have like a good spot number of clients, because clients are difficult to manage because they pay you for a service. They want to know the answer like ASAP. So it's like buying something, right? Buying a product. They want to get the benefit immediately. Completely understandable. So I acknowledge that. So knowing that, you have to price it to where you're comfortable, so where you can tell yourself, okay, well, they're paying you this amount, then I'm good to go. So Matthew, it's kind of strange, but those clients that pay all in full, it's great at that moment, but then those tend to be the ones that, really want like the service ASAP, which is
Sounds to me like you could do some plussing and actually offer a true ongoing subscription as long as you're giving them services. Because some clients, maybe it's only the premium immigration clients, maybe want extra plussing of service in some sort of way, and you could charge them another $100, 200 a month for something like that, right?
exactly. So, our max plan, we tell people we have an internal goal of file your case in 30 days, for example. If it's for like family-based application, if it's like employee-based, they take more time to prep because usually HR a little bit slower. They're busy to give us information we need. So we say 45 days for the max plan. So, for example, going to what you were saying, if they want something filed in 15 days, we do charge significantly more for that option.
Yeah.
It's just there. We have another page in our quote like optional fees.
Yeah. Um, I have to imagine too, though, like because I'm always trying to think about how could we leverage the subscription model, even though you're using membership as part of your model, even though it's not ongoing forever subscription until they're done. How can we leverage that to like better serve our clients and better serve us as the law firm owners? And like I don't know immigration that much. I've had two other immigration attorneys on the show that are doing it in their own way, and like immigrants are some of the most entrepreneurial people in the US, right? So like they have businesses and they have like goals and endeavors. Like I got to imagine there's opportunity to be like, hey, subscribe to this package and you'll get your immigration stuff and we're going to help you with your business things too. Like have you looked into any of those kind of like partnership opportunities with other firms or just bringing in a lawyer into the firm to do that too?
That'd be great. I haven't had the time to consider that, but that thought has popped in my head. For example, like there's something called e-visa, so they're starting a business here, or maybe they likely already had a business in their own country, so they may need help to file incorporation for the entity in that particular state. Like I'm only comfortable doing it in Texas because that's where I am.
Right.
So, and actually, if I recall, I think that one's included our max plan for the e-visa to file the entity if it's in Texas. So, but yeah, I'm happy with that. So if anyone's listening to this and you want to, because we have clients, in all 50 states. So
Yeah,
you bet.
it's one of these things where you can, like the way you'd package the subscription, and I want to ask you about this too, because you've sort of mentioned it, but like I call them subscriber benefits when someone subscribed. I suppose you could call them member benefits because you're more focused on the membership side of it. But like, what if a member benefit of signing up for an ongoing subscription that doesn't have a max payment that you're paying towards to pay off is like you get a discount. You get like a 5 or 10% discount on the immigration stuff, and you get like a discount on flat fee services for the setting up the business, the getting your operating agreement or corporate docs in order, all that stuff. And then ongoing, because once a business is up and running, I mean, once you get your immigration status, I mean, maybe there's some compliance things post getting that. I don't know. But once a business is up and running, they have ongoing legal needs for as long as that business is running. So, but so like pivoting from that person for immigration now into business owner, and you help them and you've captured that client. Like I get clients for prenups, and I'm able to transition them from prenup client to I do their estate plan, or maybe they want a freelancer side hustle. I'll help keep it legally sound, like all that stuff. So I'm able to take clients in one area, pivot them to another, and I'm just a true solo. I know we'll get into how you're leveraging staff and VAs and stuff soon. So anyway, just more of a comment. Like I think there's huge opportunity with something like that as long as you can manage it. So I will get your thoughts on that, and then also I'm curious to know then how you are currently leveraging VA's staff to increase your ability to
Sure.
serve more clients.
Yeah, I mean, so we use something called ClickUp. It's similar to like Monday.com or Trello
Yeah.
that people use. And so we create a different form, like an intake form for our attorney referrals. So, but yeah, we'll talk about inbound and outbound in that sense. But, so I kind of think of like, when we're immigration law, people seeking status, it's like a conduit. So we're kind of like the gateway for other areas of law, right? Like we don't want to handle PI. It's interesting. Some immigration lawyers want to quit immigration and say they want to do PI. I've heard that. And I've heard the other ways because they're like, oh, my current practice area is like, I don't want to deal with that clientele. Like, well, you wait till you find out about ours. So it's quite interesting. But so with that
They're
being
gonna
said,
buy a they're gonna buy a house, they're gonna get married, right? They're gonna do
right,
so prenups, real estate, like there's once you get a client, like they think of you as their lawyer, and the power of the subscription model is like they can
right.
come to you and you're not gonna charge them to talk to you about stuff. And
Exactly.
and
So
you're their
just
lawyer. Yeah.
keeping those referral sources open, making new connections, especially if you're a brand new lawyer. That's why I think about, your network. When you go to all these networking events, make sure you connect with them, follow up because they can prove helpful. And they have for me with connecting our clients.
So I know in the Max Law talk, you talked about outsourcing and hiring people and growing. So do you want to share a little bit about that for my audience and how you're leveraging that?
Yeah. So about half our team are virtual assistants in the sense that they work abroad, international talent in that sense. And each I started them as like, for example, like intake specialist. Some call it like receptionist, but we don't have we have a physical office, but we don't have a receptionist. And I intentionally don't call them receptionists because it's kind of like redirecting the call to someone else. Like as soon as someone calls in, that first person should be able to gather the information to see if we can even help. So, but yeah, the first starting out position would be intake specialist. I have one that's a website designer, and I have her a salary. I didn't think that I would need a website designer constantly, but we're always tweaking a little bit to make it easier. Just like your website, you lay it out there exactly what people know to hire you for.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always good to tweak for sure. So you mentioned ClickUp. So we'll use that to go into are some of the, and I'm familiar with ClickUp. It's just one of these great, just like, just all encompassing sort of like business management tools. I know Monday is another one that I've heard good things about. I'm curious to know why not legal tech, but then also just like, let's talk about the technology you're using and you're leveraging as well.
Yeah, my tech stack. So I haven't checked other legal tech lately, but when I was really getting into tech, I was like, yeah, it's not really open ended in that sense. Like if I want to contact so and so at IT support of this legal tech company, they're not so willing to change things for the better of their clients or the lawyers. And so, simple things like, well, we call it simple now, but like automation. Like, for example, if someone fills out the intake form online through ClickUp, they can receive an automated email. For example, our email would say, like, to paraphrase, we don't handle these particular cases. And so that way they don't wait on us because that's bad for customer service. And there's like you were talking about niching earlier, most people think of immigration lawyers to handle everything related to immigration, which is understandable, but we don't handle asylum or appeals to the next level, appellate court, essentially. So we let people know in advance.
Right. Right. So then like what are the other tools? Like, like what's, I don't know, I guess I would include like what website, thing you're using, but also, what are you using to charge? What are you using for the document automation? What are you using for scheduling, all that stuff? When I went solo, I pivoted from mostly litigation to a transactional only practice. I did not have a database of documents to automate. That's why a business and employment legal document database and automation tool like 650 is super useful. I can rely on the quality of the documents in 650's database since they're putting excellent legal minds to work curating and updating their documents and automations over time. When you're not billing by the hour, outsourcing and efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high quality documents drafted in less time. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at 650.com and when being onboarded to get 10% off. If you're not a business and employment attorney or you have your own documents that you'd prefer to use, then my next sponsor, Gavel, is the automation tool for you. Gavel allows you to build shareable, client-facing workflow and document automations. In other words, Gavel helps you create a legal practice where attorneys can monetize the value they bring clients in productized form and scale via subscriptions and flat fees. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at gavel.io to get 10% off an annual subscription. There's no one right way to automate and scale your practice, but with one or both of my sponsors, 650 and Gavel, you can take your subscription law firm to the next level. Links to both in the show notes. Now back to the show.
Yeah. So I encourage everyone to use, there's always that question, what should I use for this or that? And And then, but really know what features you're looking for. For me, it's a lot about automation, making, and when share a new tool, software to the team, I always tell them, this is to make your job easier, to get their buy-in, right? Because and from time to time, they're like duplicating things. I'm like, you don't need to use Google spreadsheet. It's great. Google's is great, but it's time to only use ClickUp, for example, because they can do the same thing as all in one. So for example, yes, we have Zoom available. It's like our backup to the backup. But as far as I know, they don't have transcription. So we use Dialpad because Dialpad, for at least the last 3 or 4 years, they've always had some kind of AI feature. So it's not 100% perfect, but for example, if you go down a recording, I was just listening to one earlier, like a call on it. When you click play in a specific area, it will take you to that transcript. And then there's another features like sharing sentiments, like here's another section about questions that were asked or positive, negative sentiment. Do we use it every day for every single call? No, but if we need to get back to it. And also if you're on a call in terms of sales, you didn't ask about this, but this is why we like Dialpad also. We can easily share the link to a lead or a client because let's say it's like a married couple, but only one of them were able to appear at the meeting. We have no reason to like, I didn't say anything wrong, so we were happy to share it. So everyone's updated.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard of Dialpad before, but I didn't realize they were offering those kind of features now. And I just pulled them up and I see they even have like a little like AI sort of artistic looking like AI after. So now it's like Dialpad AI or whatever. Because why not?
It's not fair.
Zoom, I will tell you, if you turn on, you have to go into your settings and you have to opt in, but Zoom has a feature called AI Companion. And you
Okay.
can, during the call, you could be like, I forgot what that person said and ask Zoom in like a Zoom AI chat, like, hey, remind me what so-and-so said a few minutes ago. And it will like pull up like a summary of it. I don't know if it does full transcripts, but it will send you a text-based summary of that conversation post-call. So it's not good for transcripts, but it's good for like, oh yeah, that's what we talked about. And
Mm.
it's directionally correct. It's like 85 to 90% correct. Get some pronouns wrong and some things like that. But it's just nice to have. And sometimes like if I'm doing like people reach out to me, lawyers reach out because they just want to have like a 30-minute chat about, hey, I'm thinking about subscription. I'm always happy to do that. And I'll forward them the email I get with the Zoom summary of the conversation.
Perfect. Yeah.
So it's like a nice little thing to do. And I don't have to do any work. Like we showed up on the Zoom, we chatted, Zoom took notes and it made an AI summary and boom, there you go. It also helps for the podcast. Although I use some other tools, some other AI tools for that. Well, so Dialpad AI, as they show on their website, it begs the question, in what other ways are you leveraging AI in your practice? Even if not substantive legal work for the law firm, how are you using AI?
Yeah. So I don't use, to clarify with the folks that are getting interested in AI, I don't use it for legal work. I use it more for like automation like that in that sense. And also like marketing messages. It's not perfect. Like the online sphere or ChatGPT, for example, may not understand like some culture in that sense in terms of messaging to come through, but it can give you a lot of great ideas. I use it for example, like icebreaker ideas, and it really is makes it much more succinct because yeah, you could Google search it or Bing search it, but there's so many websites you have to go through. There's like a lot of ads in this, on the screen. You just want to get straight to it. So I think it's great for lawyers.
Yeah. For I just go a little bit off topic here. I meant to ask this earlier, but I think it's an important question to ask. Is before you were using the membership model, presumably you were just charging the flat fees, and that's how you were charging your clients, right? So I'm curious to know how long you've been using the membership model, and then also what has been in your feedback from your clients, the client experience. That's the difference from paying the price up front versus now I get to be like a member and I get to pay it over time.
To be honest, I haven't asked directly, but I know that it makes it easier for them. So they don't have to follow up with our team to say like it was, if I was thinking how I did the contracts before, prior contracts, they don't necessarily have to ask as many questions like, what does this include? Because on the top, the scope of representation would say, file for residency application. Well, but does that include, what is the communication like? Do I get to talk to a lawyer every week, every single day? You have to add that into your service levels or plans. because people, they're hiring an attorney. It's not just so much the production of the service, but because we get meetings or strategy sessions, what we call it, not consults, but they're like, yeah, they share the other experience with a lawyer or law firm. They're like, yeah, they said they'll file my case in like 5 months. Like, that's really not reasonable. They could definitely hire another law firm. Yeah.
For these recurring payments on the membership plans, are you doing cash, check, ACH transfer, credit card? I mean, I know some immigrants, depending on their status and their availability to get work, credit card payments might be out of the question. So, like, how are you handling these recurring payments?
I wouldn't, I used to do all forms of payment, but now I've gotten to the mode of like, I am so happy to pay transaction fees. Actually, I know a lot of people don't want to do that. I love Zelle. Don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
but Zelle does not help with seeing your dashboard in terms of accounts receivable (AR). So if anyone's listening to this and you're a business owner, you own your own law firm, true solo, yeah, I've gotten to this point the past couple of years. Like, I really need to see my dashboard. How many people owe me money, right? Because I got to pay my team. And yeah, so now we still accept Zelle, but to answer your earlier question, which is related to this one too, is we use PandaDoc
Hmm.
to email out our quotes and contracts. And then PandaDoc allows, I think, at least 3 or 4 different vendors for merchant payment vendors, which I know I can say right now is QuickBooks and unfortunately not LawPay. That would be great. But what did I just use? Stripe,
Hmm.
which Stripe has something called subscription actually in their own platform. So that's been pretty helpful. Is it perfect? There's unfortunately no perfect platform for that because what I'm looking for is just a all-in-one in terms of invoicing and seeing dashboard. I'm not trying to promote any particular vendor,
It's okay. We've
but
we've talked about if there's a vendor. I mean, this. I don't know exactly when this is going to publish, but this is going to be in like the 70s or 80s, maybe even 90s, depending on how the interviews line up. I like to do
right.
lawyer, non-lawyer, lawyer, non-lawyer.
Oh, gotcha.
So I mean, at the time of recording, we're at like episode 60. So this is going to be like 15 to 20 episodes out. We've mentioned every legal tech and non-legal tech solution under the sun. I think what's important is, first of all, I don't think anyone's mentioned Dialpad before, so that's a new one. We've definitely heard PandaDoc. Longtime listeners know I use Stripe integrated with SweetDash to power my payments, and also I would definitely look into Confido Legal. They used to be Gravity Legal. Unlike LawPay, they don't charge a monthly fee. And I think they have some dashboard like features tracking. I only use it for client trust fund payments, but I know they have other subscription, they could power subscription pricing and stuff on Confido Legal. I really got to get them to sponsor the show. I feel like I mentioned them in
Yeah, you
like every
should.
third episode.
You definitely should.
I have some sponsors, which is why I want to ask you about. Now, one of them is not going to matter to you because it's business and employment law automation. But so PandaDoc is your document automation platform then too, right? Is that ultimately what you're using?
I actually haven't utilized that feature yet in
So
terms
before
of
you,
automation. You mean like a transactional document in that sense?
well,
Like
it's
a
any kind of document. So sponsor of the show, Gavel. At this point in the episode, my listeners will have already heard the advertisement. Gavel lets you automate basically anything now with practicing law. They used to be Documate, and their focus was on document automation, but now they automate intake, they automate workflows, they automate all these different things. I got to talk to Dorna about if they're automating payment stuff. I don't know if they are. I need to look into that. They're a sponsor. I should know that. But you could save 10% off your subscription if you use the code law subscribed. Just letting you know. I got to give you something, John, of benefit of value for coming on the show. So if you haven't leaned in and you don't have those sunk costs into an automation tool yet, definitely there's a reason I use Gavel. There's a reason I agreed to the sponsorship of the show because they're a tool that's been around for a long time. If you've heard of what's a Hello Divorce, is powered by Gavel, right? That's like one of that's the underlying technology that's powering that alternative legal service provider solution. So definitely check them out. And yeah, so Confido Legal and Gavel, if I think could slot in maybe nicely to your situation. And it's just transaction fees for Confido. It's not, there's no monthly fee, which is something I love to see.
Yeah, that's great. I did mention that to a couple other vendors, like you should not charge for monthly
And
fee.
and depending on which version you use on Stripe, one of the reasons I do it through a third-party provider through SweetDash is because certain types of subscriptions you use on Stripe, they charge you an additional fee on top of the 2.9% plus 30 cents. And I wanted to avoid that. So I'm using SweetDash. But I know last time I chatted with the Confido legal folks, because I'm not actually using it, they don't charge that extra fee. It's just the 2.95%, and there's no additional 30 cents, and there's no extra fee for the subscription. And then it's only like 1 something percent for ACH transfer. So if they don't have a credit card, or they'd
Mhm.
rather do ACH, or if you could convince them to do ACH transfer, then there's fewer transaction fees.
Exactly. If you don't mind me adding thank you for mentioning those two things about Confido and Stripe. Yeah, I noticed Stripe, if you wanted to add on the dashboard of the reporting, like the AR and whatnot, I think it's like 0.5%. So initially it may not seem like much, but it will add up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's very unfortunate. That caught me by surprise when I saw that on Stripe because we were just trying to get used to it. And then we just found out yesterday that actually, so this is a pain point for me right now, actually, about just collecting money. And QuickBooks, we found out when you receive an invoice, I pretend to be a client, I click on it, and it's naturally you would think like you put the full service amount, but then you can set a monthly fee, which LawPay is good about.
Mhm.
I'll mention about the con about LawPay, but QuickBooks, you have to sign in if I were a client. That makes no sense.
Brutal.
Like do recurring,
Brutal.
right? To input the credit card information. They have to input the credit card information every time. As far as I understand it.
Yeah. Brutal.
So, and then in terms of LawPay, I just recently found out that, I found out later than I should have, but when, let's say people pay into the trust account, which is one of the benefits of LawPay, you have a separated accounts, they still charge you on the back end on your operating account, whatever that people put into the trust.
That's going to be anywhere. I'll tell you, Confido Legal will charge you that 2.95% to your operating account when you put money into your trust account through Confido Legal. So they do that too. But LawPay and Confido Legal are like the only places I could find. Well, QuickBooks, I guess you could do it too. So those are the only 3 options that let lawyers
Yeah.
seamlessly do trust accounting. So it's the cost of doing business, man. Like that's
Yes,
one of the
I know,
things.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I just tell myself I have to love transaction fee. But for us, with immigration, it's not for us. It's not so much about trust account for our income. It's more about the immigration USCIS government fees.
Right.
So that's why I was like, man, I'm paying a cut. The government should.
Certain jurisdictions let you put that fee onto your clients. My opinion on that is you as the consumer hate to see when other people do that to you. So just raise your prices. Just raise your prices a little bit.
You're right.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, man, that's what I did. I went out this year to try to revisit that every January.
For you mentioned referrals. You mentioned you're tracking it in ClickUp, which is great that you're actually tracking it. So few people actually do that. I'm curious to know how you do handle referrals, and also maybe just if this is an opportunity to talk about business development in general, because I know you're big on social media and stuff. So share a little bit about how you handling things outside your practice area, and then also what you're doing for social media.
Yeah, it's interesting that, before the pandemic, I was like a good amount of lawyers were out and about networking events. And I was in Dallas before the pandemic and now I'm in Houston. So they're just really, the Bar Association had a lot of events. It was great. But then and I got referrals, a lot of attorney referrals, but I never had a way to track it. And really to benefit the referral partner, right? Because, you want to give a gift or something like that. We won't talk about any kind of profit sharing here, but more about the gift to show appreciation. So ClickUp allows me to create a new form aside from the one that the individuals or companies can fill out. But I have one that lists all the different attorney referral partners. So I can see on the back end the reporting, like, okay, this attorney referred these many people, but also it's easier for us to follow up with those people. So we try to track that every quarter.
Yeah. And then non-lawyer lead gen, like what are you doing social media wise to get clients? And just in
So
general.
In general, any platform you use, well, I use pretty much all of them except Snapchat. About a year ago, almost 2 years ago, I told myself and the team, I don't want to get on TikTok because I knew once you start the account and you brand yourself and whatnot, it's going to keep coming, which is a good problem to have.
Mm-hmm.
But was a couple days ago or last week, I got on TikTok, asked one of my lawyer friends, hey, let's just jump on, do like that dual hosting or something. and just talk about illegal problems that people have in general, not just immigration. Yeah, my followers were not having it. The audience, they just kept asking immigration questions. They're like, answer my question. So it's a kind of love-hate thing, you want to just relax and have a normal conversation. But if you brand yourself, you're gonna keep getting those questions.
Right.
So yeah, a tip in general though, if I can share with your audience, Matthew, is just be yourself. Like as if like if you had FaceTime, just talking to your friends and sharing situation. And think about if you did like know your rights type workshops or business workshops in your local church or community. This is really not much different. If anything, it's easier because you don't have to drive somewhere, just like using Zoom or something.
So as we start to wrap up the interview here, I want to ask you about, because the fact that you're doing things differently, right? I think there's without question. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. Most of my guests who have been on the podcast, all of them not billing time or doing something unique or different with the way they're delivering their legal services, are either women attorneys, attorneys of color. And I'm just curious to ask you why you think that is.
That they're not billing their time
That they're
properly.
not billing that the innovators in how they deliver legal services and the business model that they choose to use, like the subscription or membership model, the most of the lawyers doing it who I've had on the show are women attorneys, attorneys of color. And I'm asking why do you think that
Oh,
is?
that is
Yeah.
interesting. You know what, Matthew? I'd probably be just speculating, but I think in general, if there's a theme, it's going against the grain
Mhm.
and just try to do things differently that fits their lifestyle. Like try to fit my lifestyle. When I started before I have two young children. The first one was born right before the pandemic in late 2018. So I already had to start with being remote, away from the office, even though I have a physical office. And I think just trying to create. So anyone in the audience listening to this later, like you need to, if especially if you're a solo, create the practice that you want that fits your lifestyle. And I think that's why, yeah, maybe that's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly the old white guys running all the other law firms want a button seat so they could see that you're busy, even if you're not actually billing your time, right?
Exactly. Well, actually, to plug someone, I can't remember. It's bad. I can't remember her name right now, but she got on TikTok about a year plus ago, and she had meant she's a recent grad at that time. She went to an interview and whatnot. She was a toddler, and she realized like she didn't like that interview because well, first of all, that law firm required her to work in person,
Hmm.
no hybrid, nothing like that. And that just didn't fit her work style, lifestyle, whatnot, because she had a little kid. And I'm really proud of her, even though I don't know her. Like, that's amazing. Ended up starting her own law firm and doing great things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I have a 3-year-old, and being a parent in the pandemic, working from home, like working remote, and being able to be there, like for times that I would have, traditionally working in an office, never would have been there for these moments in my kid's life. But because of the pandemic, I got that benefit. And that was a huge impetus to me starting my own practice and doing things differently. So, parent of young child is another through line for needing to do things differently.
Exactly. Actually, I do remember her social media name. I don't
What
remember
is it?
her real name. Single mom attorney. That's what she goes by on probably her channels. So
Good brand. Something else. Okay, so yeah, wrapping up here still, but something else you said on the pod on Max Lawyer, your Max Lawyer presentation, is you talked about building to sell, and because that reminded me about branding, right? And like single mom lawyer or single lawyer mom or whichever it is, a good brand. I'm the subscription attorney, right? That's my brand. You've got a domain, greencardguys.com, which by the way, greencardguys.com/plan. So you could go see how John is doing it, and how it does a really good job just giving a lot of information on how he sets up his membership plans for his clients. Um, but you are still going traditional law firm name, Ting Law Group. And I'm curious to know why, because you said you're building to sell one day, maybe, and Ting Law Group is still focused around you, but this Green Card Guys URL is like a super unique brand. So like, what's the thought process behind super unique brand URL, but traditional sounding law firm name?
well, Teen Law Group was created, the entity was created pre 2018,
Mhm.
and Green Card Guys was created about, I think, right when the pandemic hit. I was like, I got
Okay.
it differently. So really, it was more, even though it happens to be the website of the law firm, It's really more for the media brand in that sense, as a marketing channel in the stream. Mhm. So, yeah, now it's going to be a little difficult to differentiate it because it's the law firm website. And
I
yeah,
don't know.
I mean,
Green Card Guys brought to you by Ting Law Group.
exactly.
I mean, something like there's something there because especially if you want to sell, first of all, recurring revenue, even if it is going up to a limit, is going to make your ability to sell your law firm a heck of a lot more money when you've got this recurring revenue. But like when you get that brand name that could sell, where like the clients aren't there for Ting, they're there for Green Card Guys. Like that becomes a more valuable brand to sell too, and like it's right there in the URL. So I would love to see you back in 6 months when you've
Yeah,
rebranded. Maybe Green Card Guys isn't ultimately the brand that you go with, but I think, I mean, first of all, I do love the logo, and TLG does roll off the tongue. So there is something to like the traditional sounding law firm name. And as a guy, my law firm is Subscription Attorney LLC, and people do ask me, they're like, "You are a lawyer, right?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm a licensed attorney." So Green Card Guys, you might get the same question, but
exactly.
Ting Law. So there's value in traditional sounding law firm name, but I feel like if you're selling like when you're going to sell a law firm, like that brand, I feel like has such power. So if you ever do
Yeah.
rebrand, let me know, and I'd love to have you back on the show and have that
For
conversation.
sure, absolutely. So yeah, actually, to transition to that point is build a practice that you want, but whatever you want is likely what others want, especially less hours. Like I have, it's funny, it's green card guys, but two of my associates are females, and but what's it called is you want to build a team that you can sell to, like at least a concept, sell to another aspiring law firm owner.
You
Yeah,
got to get Green Card Gals, and it's got to redirect to Green Card Guys, and then you've got the Green Card Guys and the Green Card Gals, and actually maybe two brands. And I'm not going to publish this for a while, John. So go get that domain if it
yeah,
doesn't, if somebody doesn't have it already, and then you could have both. And then people who want a male lawyer, people who want a female lawyer, but it's
yeah.
both it's both Ting Law Group.
It would be humorous to receive checks that say green card guys or something like that. That are the traditional law firm name.
So with this fun divergence, I'll ask the last question I asked all my guests, which is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Ooh. Well, if you define a sandwich as putting something between bread, I guess, then yeah, I guess it could be define a hot dog could be considered a sandwich. And you're putting
Okay.
condiments on it, radish, whatever you like.
Pickle, some grilled onions. I'm getting hungry. It's
I
almost
can see
lunchtime
why you
here.
might ask this question since you're in Chicago. That was like a thing, right? Deep dish.
Yeah, right, right. I just thought it's interesting to see how people answer. If people wanted to follow up with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Sure. And you can go to greencardguys.com. And then when you go click contact us, there's actually below that, there's the forms for, individuals or biz owner companies. But below that is a section for attorneys that we can support you, like, for example, helping you if you're interested in ClickUp or something else.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Matthew.
And that's our show. Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for being sponsors. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with somebody you think would find value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn, since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email Kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.